Good day everyone, I'm David, moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, which is Data Integrity and Human Error. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Dr. Jeanette Colezo. Jeanette Colezo, PhD, is an industrial organizational psychologist with 20 years of experience that specializes in engineering psychology and human reliability. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Jeanette.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone to our webinar today. Today we're going to be talking about human error. We're going to talk about data or data integrity, the requirements and the positions from regulatory agencies, in this particular case, the FDA, and what they expect with regards to data integrity. And then we're going to put all of that together to see what is it that we can do to make sure that we comply with the expectations. Okay, so what is data integrity? So it refers to the accuracy and consistency of data throughout its life cycle. Now, what are those trustworthy records and characteristics? And this is all part of what the FDA tells us. Now, one of the acronyms that the FDA uses for data integrity is called ALCOA, but these are basically the requirements. Then it talks about backups. So why is it important? Well, this is what they say. All right, so FDA expects data to be reliable and accurate. Then we have the significant issues. What are some of the significant issues that the FDA presents? Repeated tests, trial runs, sample runs to avoid testing into compliance. What are some threats and some techniques that we can use to work with this with data integrity issues? Well, now let's talk about human error. Now, when it comes to human error, one thing that I want to make sure is that we understand that human error is not a root cause. So if we're making mistakes in our data, why is it that we make mistakes in our documentation? So basically, this is what we say when we talk about error and human error. We looked and we found all of the practices or best practices that are used by National Transportation Safety Board, FAA, Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and we put all of these practices together. They know that 99% of accidental losses, except for natural disasters, begin with human error. What we're saying when we define human error is that it's any action or anything that I do that results in something different than expected. Part of understanding human error is to acknowledge that part in which we were blaming people, that's an old vision. So what are the types of errors that we are avoiding? Well, intentional errors. All right, so some definitions. We have certify, revise, verify, validate, compare, testify, or approve. Now, what can we do? Well, we want to prevent or reduce. Common causes. We don't know what we are looking for. This is very specifically important for check-bys or visual inspections and so on. How to prevent, reduce, or avoid certain errors? Well, checks. Maintain that data integrity, other types of techniques to work with it. So what do we want to do? Establish your methodology. What can we do? Well, do reverse revision, comparison, maybe going backward. Now, responsibility. And this is very large because I want you to know something. If you are the perform by, your job is to do the activity. Verifier is the real responsible of the clarity of the documentation, as his task is 100% dedicated to verification, quote unquote. All right. Now that basically concludes my presentation, but I did not want to end without giving you this. This is not for data integrity only. This is not. This is the root cause determination tool that we use for root cause analysis for human error. Look at that procedures, because documentation is under procedures, and you want to make sure that people use their checklist, that they're not misleading or confusing, and that they're not wrong or incomplete. So I just add this as an additional check for you. So that basically concludes my presentation. And when we're talking about checks, if you don't find it often, you often don't find it. And that's what we want to avoid. And that's what happens when we do checks. Most of the times we don't see errors, and that's why if you don't find it often, you often don't find it.
That does conclude the session for today. Thank you everyone for participating. You may all disconnect now. Have a great day ahead.
Thank you.